Hi Stampers, it's Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome to our Monday Live. Today we are working on it's a floating panel tent card. It's very similar to my pendulum card where I make kind of a tent like this. And in the past, we've made a little mechanism with something that swings back and forth. And this time it's just a sunken panel, giving us kind of a shadow box effect, but it's a tent card. So we're going to be using a new bundle, which is the Peace on Earth bundle. And it came out in September, so it is fairly new. And I'm excited to work with it today and show you how to make this floating tent card. Yeah, floating panel tent card. Let's get started. Oops, I don't want to do that. There we go. So I should still have my microphone now. I forgot I can't discontinue that window completely because it's attached to my new microphone. But this is our Peace on Earth bundle, and it's strictly sentiments. They can be used for Christmas, but they don't necessarily need to be. There's sympathy, there's just sending prayers, all the best in your new adventure, sending love, wishing you love. There could be so many things that you can do with this, big hugs for a good friend. I just really liked that while it is a Christmas set, it's going to last me throughout the year. And I like that when that can happen. It comes with these beautiful doves, and I'll show you when I cut them out, but they cut between the feathers, but not cutting them off. And then the wings can lift. So there's lots of ways to just flip up all the little feathers or wings on them, and it can make a really pretty 3D effect. So we'll play with that when we die cut. And then I'm also using the textured notes dies. You know that I am a huge fan of rectangle dies and basic shapes, those sorts of things. And rather than just cutting out a rectangle, which, I can kind of do with my trimmer, this actually gives lots of pretty different patterns that will go around the outside of these squares, making them extra special. So this is our card. We're also going to do some heat embossing. I got this idea from Elaine Harding. She's another Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and she did this fold just using different stuff. So I'm just adapting it to the bundle and the DSP I'm working with today. So I'm starting out with a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. So it's basically half of a sheet of cardstock folded in the middle, and it's going to have our fold at the top. Remember, you can also have it come from the side, but today we're having it come from the top. And of course, we get our standard card base by cutting it the other way and folding. All of our card bases are always half of a sheet of cardstock. Okay, our layers are nice and simple. We're going to come down by 1/4 inches, and I've discussed this before, probably more with my Thursdays, but I have these little templates that I've cut out that are every 1/8 of an inch. And so I can set these down and I can decide, okay, this is going to be my backdrop, and maybe I want to come down 2 sides, and I can lay them one on top of each other and decide how big of a border I want to have around my layers. And I can play around with it until I've got just what I'm looking for. Size-wise, but traditionally each layer comes down 1/4 of an inch. So because my overall card is the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, we're coming down to 4 by 5 1/4, and then we have 3 3/4 by 5. So those are going to be our back layers. For the front, I have a piece of designer series paper, and this is 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm just using those as standard because I know you guys like the 1/4 inch, but if you wanted to, you could also give this an 1/8 inch border and be using 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So just a slimmer border around the outside edge. But I'm going to go ahead and glue this down, and we could have gone, you know, either way. I just kind of liked our birds. So I'm going to adhere this to my card front, but I don't want my 2 panels I'm going to be cutting out of the middle to be glued together. So when I put my adhesive, I'm going to make sure I run it around the outside edge. Now remember, our glue is very strong and it doesn't require much. If you give it too much liquid glue, you're going to have your paper warp, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so there is our card base, as I said. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on the back. I just had this leftover piece, and I just wanted to put some strips on the back. That's what I did here, because I just wanted a little something. Really, I'm doing Peace on Earth, and I wasn't really sure, you know, what other sentiment kind of went with it. I mean, I could see heartfelt prayers and with deepest sympathy, big hugs. You know, a lot of these go together. Peace on Earth, I didn't really have one to go with it. So I'm just leaving the back blank. It's going to leave us some room for writing, but I didn't want it to be totally blank. I want it to coordinate with my card. And so I'm just going to cut some 1/2 inch strips out of this little scrap of paper that I had left over. I just went up and I noticed my paper shifted a teeny bit. So often when I'm using little pieces like this, I will be very careful when I'm going up. See how my paper moved? I will be more likely to start from the top and move down, because this like rim at the bottom, this little lip, is going to keep it from moving. So rather than how the paper shifted when I went up, when it comes down, it stays stationary. Okay, and then I'm going to, like I said, put these little strips across the bottom. And I don't know, do we want that one or do we want that one? It's like the birds aren't quite big enough, because we don't get a full bird, we're just getting partials. So I think I'm going to go with this side. And I could have gone down a side and gone, you know, just one strip vertically. I could have gone diagonally. I think about it, just like give it a little bit of thought and think outside the box, because I think we have a tendency to just do things the way we've always done things. And part of card making, and the part I love about it, is we're here to be creative. We're here to give it our own little twist. And, you know, even though you may be getting your ideas from me and I got it from somebody else and they got it from somebody else, we just get to put our own spin on it, which I really like. And of course, that gives it that personalized touch, so that when you're giving it to someone else, you know, it has that added layer of love that goes with it as we create for someone else. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to the back. As I said, I didn't really have a sentiment to go with it, so we're just going to go with it and say that's going to be where I'm going to write my note to the recipient. I mean, obviously I could grab another stamp set and pull something out of there, like a Merry Christmas or, you know, Happy Holidays. Any of those things would go with it beautifully. Come up with a whole lot more ideas that way. Okay, I'm also going to have this little piece at the bottom I forgot to mention, and she made hers like 4 1/8 by 4, and I had a hard time remembering which way, it had to go. So I made mine 4 by 4 because that way I could do my score lines and it didn't matter which direction they want, and it's going to fit within here still, so it doesn't matter. But I went ahead and I scored it on one side at 1/2 inch, 1 1/4, 2 inches, 2 3/4, and 3 1/2. Okay, and then I'm going to score this as valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley. Okay, so just kind of an accordion effect. And of course, a good bone folder is going to help make those creases nice and sharp. And the colors I'm using here are Night of Navy and then Misty Moonlight, because they are colors used in the designer series paper. So we've got Pecan Pie, we've got Misty Moonlight, Night of Navy, Basic White. There's a little bit of maybe Smoky Slate in there. So all of our designer series papers are going to coordinate with our cardstocks and our inks, making things so much easier to match. Okay, then I'm going to open this all the way up, and I'm going to take those rectangle dies that we were looking at earlier. And I'm going to pull out one that I think just kind of fits the front, and use whichever one you want. There's no rule on how big this panel needs to be, other than you want to make sure that you have at least that 1/2 inch at the bottom to attach your piece on the inside. Okay, and we could also layer up, which I wanted to show you. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to run this through the die cutting machine just like this. I apologize for the dogs barking more than usual. There must have been a litter of kittens born across the street, because the other day there were like 6 kittens playing in the yard, and they just went bananas because we're not used to having cats out in the yard. And I don't know who they belong to. Okay, I ran this through, and this time it cut all the way through, which is awesome. The first time I did the card, it didn't cut all the way through. And so one of the things I make sure and do before I remove the die from the paper, I make sure I look over on the other side and see that it did indeed cut all the way through, because we can run it through a second time as long as it doesn't shift. We don't want it to shift because of the design that's in it. Okay, we wouldn't want to lose that design by it shifting. And as I said, we could layer this up. So I'm going to take the next size die, and I'm going to cut a piece of Basic White. Or we could go Misty Moonlight, or we could even cut down the designer series paper. There's lots of little things that we could do with this. Let's see. Let's do that. Let's cut this out, and then we're going to mount it on this. So we'll just have an added layer. So by adhering that, I can make sure that the cardstock keeps our piece nice and sturdy. And then it's going to have this design, and because it was cut out of the middle, it's going to match up with the design on the outside. So it's going to just help our little floating frame here. Just kind of a last minute decision Could also use the other side or a coordinating piece out of the same pack. That might have even been fun because it would have matched the back. And again, not too much glue. And I'm using liquid, so it's nice and easy to wiggle it around and get it to the point where it matches up exactly. I have a little bit of glue that came out the sides. After that dries fully, it will dry clear, but it might be a little bit shiny, and we don't like that. So I have an adhesive remover, and this is just a little chunk of rubber that I am able to just drag along the dried glue, and it's going to kind of just roll it up and allow me to pick it off so that I don't have a mess left over. This is something Stampin' Up! Used to sell, and they stopped. So I have it on my website. Under my shop tab, there's a line that says craft room favorites. And I have quite a few things on there that maybe I've gotten from Amazon or scrapbook.com or any of those sites that still find useful, and it's something Stampin' Up! No longer sells. So I have those recommendations over there. And while it doesn't cost you anything extra, I do get a little bit of a referral thank you from them for referring you over there. Okay, see, and this didn't, it's going to come all the way off, but I don't want to mess with this thing too much until it's dry. Because while it's still wet, it may rip the DSP a little bit, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm trying to be very careful and leave it alone. It will come off, I promise. Okay. Then I have our little doves, and so I'm going to pull these out. And then I wanted the dove to be carrying a little piece of an olive branch, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. You may also, if you're not using the same sentiment I'm using, or you're doing something different, you could also use one of the rectangles to create an extra sentiment line along the bottom. Oh, guess I could get rid of that frame, huh? Sorry about that. This is a new piece of equipment that I just got. And this is only the second time I've used it, so sorry about that. But this could create an extra sentiment along the bottom. You could also use, a circle in the bottom. You could use many, many, many different things. I'm just here for the ideas. Okay, I pulled out these because we're going to go ahead and do the doves in basic white, which I have right here. So I'll be able to run those two through there. And then the olive branch. I'm going to do an old olive with some adhesive sheet on the back, because this is going to be really tiny when it cuts out. And obviously, if I try to put glue on the back of that, unless I used a sponge or a sponge dauber or something to just get a very thin layer on there, it's going to kind of make a mess. So if I cut that out with the with the adhesive sheet on the back, that's going to become a sticker, and that's going to be a whole lot easier to deal with. Okay, did you guys watch my last live, which I guess last Thursday, when I talked about the royal retreat that I had just come back from? That is an in-person retreat I do yearly, and we rent an Airbnb and we stay for 3 nights, and we do 4 days worth of crafting, and we have all kinds of fun. We share the meals, we play games, we enjoy the scenery and the campfire and all that kind of stuff. Well, I've been asked to offer an online version. And while I have done online classes in the past, it's never really been a full on retreat in that I haven't done all the goodies that I do for my in person people. And this year I am. So this year I'm offering this as an online option. And so you will make the whole 6 cards that I did at retreat. And you'll get the pieces all pre-cut, all your cardstock, and will be shoved into an envelope that will coordinate with it. And then you'll also get all the little goodies seen in the picture above, the t-shirt, the bag. You can add on the bundle if you wish. It will come with the designer series paper, the block holder, the tabletop trash can, their nameplate. All of that's going to be included in the bundle for our online retreat. So I am kind of excited about that. Nope, I wanted this one. Did I get rid of my sound when I did that? I hope not. I don't think so. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because some people had asked about it. And even when I put it in my newsletter and I talked about it on Facebook, I've still gotten a couple emails of people saying they hadn't seen me talk about it. So I apologize if you've seen it before, but I was getting questions. And I can provide the sign up link if anyone is interested. Of course, if you want to do the in-person, that will be 2026. And I'll, again, put that in the newsletter and talk about it when the time comes. We've been doing them in May normally, because that's when the new annual catalog comes out. But this year we decided to try a fall retreat. And so I will be asking the people who attended, their preference, because I want to do what the most people want, obviously. Okay. Oh, I'm going to need one more piece because I need a little L bracket that I'm going to be putting on the back of that. I forgot that piece. But we're going to be heat embossing onto here. Again, probably something I should have done before I glued the frame on. Or we could emboss it on a separate piece and then pop it on here on dimensionals. Could have done several different things, but let's give it a try. What I'm going to do is use the embossing buddy, and that's especially going to help with any leftover glue that may be around the outside edge. And it's also going to take any oils from your fingers or any static electricity that might be in the room, and it's going to remove it from the cardstock so that we don't get embossing powder where it doesn't belong. I'm going to stamp using Versamark ink. Gosh, they're distracting me. I apologize. Okay, so this Versamark ink can be used on its own. I can just leave it like that and let it dry. And it gives us kind of a tone-on-tone watermark effect. But it does remain sticky for a little while. And while it is sticky, we can add the embossing powder, which will stick to that ink. I had silver. It's on my desk somewhere. I'm probably staring straight at it. And I'm not seeing it, so I'm grabbing white. Our embossing powder comes either as a standard black, white, clear, or the metallics where you would get your copper, gold, and silver. So I'm obviously using the basics. And you can see I knocked most of it off, but there's also a little brush in this kit that allows you to just kind of knock off any little pieces of embossing powder that didn't come off. And then there are these reverse tweezers, and the reverse tweezers allow you to hold on to that while you're using the heat tool, and it keeps you from burning your fingers. Oh, well, I'll also use the brush to knock it back into the container, and you can either do it out of the corner like this if you're lazy like me, or there is a screw top at the top that of course gives it kind of a funnel where you can pour it out that end. I am using the Stampin' Up! Heat tool, and that has 2 different temperature things to it. I'm going to go to the higher temperature on here, and I'm going to heat the paper evenly from both sides, because you'll notice when I first start doing it, it's going to kind of warp a little bit, and I want to make sure that it's heating evenly and being as flat as possible. Oh, and look what I did. I did it in clear instead of white. See? That was not intentional. But this is what it would have looked like if I had done silver, and it would be similar if I had done white. And right there, right in front of me, is the silver powder. Ugh, how frustrating. Yeah, that's not going to work. Okay. Okay. Okay, for my little piece in the middle, I want it to be just a little bit narrower than this. So this is 2 3/4, so maybe I'll do 2 1/2. Let's say 2. I don't know what her measurements were. I didn't write it down. But basically all I want is a little L bracket that's going to allow me to glue 1/2 to the back of this, and then 1/2 to the inside of the card. Okay, so that's going to mount inside. Oops. Let's see if I can get this angled right for the light. Not quite, huh? There we go. Okay, now you can see the inside. See how it's just kind of an L bracket, half on the back of the card, half on that floating panel? That's what I'm creating out of this. I want it to stick really well, so I'm going to use tear and tape adhesive. I'm also going to use tear and tape adhesive for my little accordion at the bottom that's going to prop the card open. So going this 2 1/2 by 2 scored at 1, just to create my L bracket for here. And I want it at the top. Okay, when I put this into the card, I want the valleys and the 2 mountains. So 3 valleys, 2 mountains. It's going to go inside the card that way. So my first, the step up is going to go on one side of here. So I'm going to go ahead and mount that right here. And I'm just aligning it with the bottom of the frame I cut out so that when I sandwich this all together, it stays inside. I don't want that really poking out over the outside. It's going to poke over a little bit on the inside, but this panel is going to hide that. So I think we'll be okay. Okay, once I have one side, I can go ahead and peel off this, and I'm just going to hold this together with my fingers, and then I'm going to close the card. Okay, by doing that, instead of, taking this over and trying to align it with the bottom, I know that when that's fully collapsed, my card will indeed close and it will lay nice and flat, making it easier for mailing. And then, as I said, I want to stick this basically right back into the hole it came out of. So I'm going to peel off that. And then I'm just lining it up with the card collapsed. That's going to give me my best view of aligning that in there. And then once I open it up, you can see how it makes it float in there. Okay, I cut out a couple of these birds, as I said, and this is where I was saying you could mess with the feathers on it, and you could fan these out a little bit, maybe curl them with your bone folder or something, giving it a little more of a 3D look to it. You don't have to, but it might help a little bit. Okay, and then if I leave them like that, I can go ahead and attach. I'm going to use glue dots, I think. So how's everybody doing? Are we coming to the realization we're getting towards the end of summer? And that's just about over. So cooler weather is coming, which I find a lot more people do more crafting when the weather is cooler. So that's fun. It's time to almost start preparing for the holidays. My goodness, that's coming way too fast. So that's why I've got kind of a Christmas card idea going on, because it's going to take me a while to get all mine done. I'm just checking on the comments. That's so fun. People are realizing they kind of live near each other or have family near there. How fun. Anyway, I'll try not to get distracted. Okay. Let's see. I want this to go right here. So it's not as hidden in person. Like the clear shows up better in person than it does on camera. But obviously, it would be better with the silver or the white. Oh, my last piece is I die cut the little leaf. Here we go. See how tiny that is? And I thought just putting this in his beak gives it just enough pop of color. I don't know, I think it helps. It's mostly monochromatic because it is all blues with just an accent color, but I like that little olive branch in there. So that is today's card. I do have, where did I put it? I have created our card for Thursday, and it's a nice simple one using punches. But we're going to be using our designer series paper because we have quite a few of these packs that have like a scene to them. And I want to show you coming up a few ways that you can preserve the scene and still create something that's a bit of a fun fold and yet easy to do. Yes, you can reheat the embossing powder and add white and heat again. I just didn't want to do that on camera. So anyway, thank you to everyone who has been here watching. I appreciate it. And I hope you come back on Thursday. This was today's card, our little floating panel. And then on Thursday, we're going to do this center lift with a little bit of coloring with Stampin' blends and then a little bit with Stampin' Write markers, which are on their way out. So if you don't have Stampin' Write markers yet, you might want to go grab them because they do have a lot of uses. Just Stampin' Up's going to stop carrying them. So go grab them while you can. Thanks so much. Bye.